The first night of December always arrives a little shy, as if it isn't sure whether it's welcome yet. And tonight, the air has that familiar shape, cool at its edges, warm at its center, a small circle of comfort in a world that can feel a little too wide. I turned the lamp on a moment ago, and the glow settled itself into the room the way a scarf settles onto tired shoulders. Not dramatic, just present, just enough. It's funny. I've had this lamp for 26 years, and somehow it has better timing than I do. It always knows when the evening needs gentleness before I do. Age gives some things rhythm and gives the rest of us humility. I'm here in my old reading chair, the one with the softened arms and the polite little squeak it gives whenever I sit down. That sound used to embarrass me in my 40s. Now at 63, well, I've made my peace with any object that complains more quietly than I do. Lily is curled up near my feet, a soft, warm weight against this cool night. She has this way of sighing at the exact moment I settle my hands around a warm cup, as if she's giving the evening permission to begin. Animals understand rituals better than we do. They live inside them like little poems. Tonight's tea is chamomile, a simple kindness in a cup. The steam rises in thin, thoughtful lines, wavering like somebody deciding whether to step forward or retreat. I know that feeling too well. This house has grown very good at holding the quiet. It has learned to cradle silence instead of resisting it. And on nights like this, when December arrives wearing its gentlest voice, the quiet begins to feel like company. The rain is tapping the window with that familiar rhythm, a rhythm I've always loved. There's something honest about rain. It never asks to be more than it is. It falls, and the world listens, or doesn't, but it keeps falling anyway. Earlier today, the mailbox held one of those holiday catalogs, the glossy kind that weighs almost nothing, but carries the smell of a decade ago. I only flipped through it long enough to see the same sweaters they print every year, the same kitchen gadgets, the same promises of easier living. At my age, easier living usually just means better lighting, and maybe a heating pad that doesn't make suspicious noises. That's it. But tonight, I'm not thinking about catalogs or sweaters or anything waiting for tomorrow. Tonight is about the quiet familiarity of this lamp, this chair, this cup, and the simple dignity of sitting still on the first evening of a new month. There's a certain ceremony to the way the light touches the walls tonight. It spreads gently, filling only the parts of the room willing to be held. Old houses have preferences, corners that welcome the glow, and corners that keep their shadows close, like a treasured secret. This house has lived long enough to have opinions, and tonight it prefers a softer story. A moment ago, when I reached for the blanket draped over the arm of the chair, the fabric brushed against my ring. That old, faithful band that still catches the yarn the way it did decades ago. For just an instant, it felt like a fingertip tapping me on the shoulder. Not from the past, but from something quieter, something between memory and presence. Some objects wrestle with history, even when they don't move. The rain deepened a few minutes ago. You can hear it now, soft but certain, a steadying sound, a reminder that the world is still stitching itself together outside these windows. And inside, the warm air from the heater moves slowly across the floor. That warmth always takes its time, as though it wants to be sure I'm ready before it reaches me. Kindness at this age often arrives like that, hesitant, slow, but honest. Not a door you walk through, more like a soft curtain brushing against your arm as you move from one breath to another. Years ago, sometime around 1996, if memory hasn't decided to take the scenic route again, I used to light this same lamp in the same corner of the room. Back then, the walls were a brighter color, the carpet softer, and my steps a little quicker. But the lamp hasn't changed. It still casts the kind of light that turns an ordinary evening into a quiet promise. I smiled earlier when I sat down and the chair gave its little hello squeak. In my 30s, I would have blamed the chair. Now, well, I'm open to the possibility that the sound wasn't entirely the chair's fault. Aging is just negotiating with physics, gently and with humor. I've always believed the first night of December has its own kind of heartbeat, not loud, not eager, but steady, the kind of rhythm you notice only if you allow yourself to settle long enough to feel the room breathing. Tonight, the quiet carries a soft little weight, gentle, almost shy, a weight that doesn't ask for attention, but offers space for whatever you've been holding. The world outside is blurred by mist, as if someone smudged the edges of everything. I stood at the window for a moment before sitting down, watching the street lamp turn the falling mist into a scattering of tiny pearls. They looked so delicate, I almost whispered, in case loud thoughts could break them. December does that, turns the world into a fragile painting you feel privileged to witness. Chamomile is the one tea that never fights me. It just lets me arrive. Even the steam seems patient. I've always admired anything that can wait without losing its warmth. Earlier today, I took a moment to dust the table. Just a small gesture, nothing ceremonial. But when the lamplight hit the clean surface, a faint shimmer appeared. Dust has always been more friend than nuisance to me. It reminds me that the light is working hard and that time has passed in this house in ways that shaped me quietly. Time rarely announces itself. It settles the way dust does, softly, then suddenly visible in the right light. And now, the room feels fully settled into its December self. The rain, the lamp, the warmth, the soft rhythm of Lily's breathing. Everything here tonight seems to agree that quiet is a kind of medicine. There's tenderness in this stillness, a kind that doesn't need to be explained. It's the kind you find only in the company of a familiar room, an old chair, and the steady presence of a night that expects nothing from you. As I pulled this blanket across my knees, I remembered a younger version of myself, rushing through evenings like they were chores, hurrying to fold everything, finish everything, prove something, though I can't remember what. Age has a way of giving you back the simple truth that nothing important rushes, not healing, not kindness, not the way a December night begins. So I'm sitting here on this first evening of the month, letting the night be what it is, gentle, slightly fragile, and quietly brave. There's something deeply human about beginning again, even when you're not asking for beginnings. And tonight feels like that, like a soft door opening without a sound, inviting me inside. This lamp beside me, it has seen so many versions of my life. It has watched me through decades, through joy, through loss, through long nights and early mornings. And still, it glows with the same steady faith as if every December were the first. Maybe that's why I turned it on tonight without even thinking. Some rituals we don't choose. They choose us. So here I am, with this cup, this blanket, this dog, this lamp, sitting inside the quiet of December's very first night. And somehow, the world feels gentle enough to let the evening begin. It's strange how the quiet of an evening can deepen when the hour shifts. Just a few minutes ago, the night felt like it was stretching its limbs, and now it feels like it has settled fully into its chair, the way an old friend would, not asking for anything, just being here. I moved the lamp a little closer before I sat back down. Not because the room is dark, but because sometimes light feels like company. And tonight, I don't mind a little companionship. The steam from my cup curls upward in a slow ribbon, and each time I lean forward, the warmth brushes my face like a soft greeting. It's funny, chamomile always smells the same, but somehow it feels different depending on the night. Tonight it smells safe, familiar, like a memory I misplaced but never lost. I'm thinking about that corner of the room, the one where my little bookshelf leans just slightly to the left. People always ask why I never fixed it, but what they don't understand is some things are meant to lean. Not everything has to stand perfectly straight. And besides, if I fixed it now, I'd have nothing left in the house that's older and crooked than me. No more than a breath. The truth is, the bookshelf has witnessed more of my life than most people have. It's held the weight of every version of me. The young woman who thought late nights meant adventure. The middle-aged woman who thought late nights meant laundry. And now, the woman who knows late nights simply mean I'm still here. I touched the spine of one of my old journals earlier, a faded maroon one from around 2008, back when the economy was shaking under everyone's feet, and we all learned the art of holding on. I remember writing about grocery store prices and how the clerk at the old Safeway let me use a coupon 1 week late. It felt like a miracle at the time. It still does, in a way. That journal has a folded corner on a page where I wrote something silly to myself. Maggie, don't forget to buy AA batteries next week. I never did buy them. I suppose some reminders are meant for a version of yourself you never become. Tonight, I'm wrapped in this knitted blanket my neighbor Dorothy gave me years ago. She said she made it to stay warm during winter, but I'm convinced she crocheted half her loneliness into it too. It has weight, the kind of weight that feels like a lapful of quiet understanding. I remember when she handed it to me. She said, "Be careful with this one, Maggie. It listens." And honestly, on nights like this, it really does. Lily seems calmer now. She always senses when my breathing slows. Sometimes I think she believes she's responsible for keeping my heart steady. And in a way, she is. This evening, I reached out and placed my hand on her tiny back, felt the gentle rise and fall of her breath. There's something sacred about touching something that trusts you completely. It's the kind of quiet that doesn't ask questions or take anything in return. It simply shares the space with you. A memory drifted in earlier from somewhere around 1996, a winter that came earlier than expected, the kind of year when coats felt heavier and the world felt one size too big. My husband used to come home from his long shifts, shake the snow off his boots, and say, "This house feels smaller every winter, Maggie, but in the good way." He always had a way of softening a cold day, not by talking. He wasn't much of a talker, but in the way he placed things down, one by one, as if taking care not to disturb the air. Sometimes I still hear that, the sound of care, not in words, but in the way things settle. Cups, chairs, footsteps, even memories. And I think a part of healing is learning to hear those sounds again without breaking. Tonight, I lit a small candle earlier and watched the flame tremble the way new thoughts do before they learn to stand. Its glow is faint, a kind of whisper light, but it fills the room in a way the lamp never does. Lamplight tells the room what is. Candlelight asks what might be. I like that question more at 63 than I ever did at 33. As I sit here, I'm thinking about all the days I didn't notice, the mornings that passed quietly because I was too busy surviving the part of life that demands noise. Sometimes growing older feels like rediscovering the art of noticing. Noticing the warmth of a cup, the shape of rain on the glass, the way December carries its own stillness, the small sigh of a dog who trusts you, the weight of a blanket that has its own stories, the sound the house makes when it remembers your home. There, it did it again. I swear this house speaks more at night than most people do in a week, and I like its language. Soft, timbered, earned. Earlier I glanced at the clock, not because I was rushing anything, but because December always makes me curious about time. The first day of a month has a way of asking quietly, "What will you do with me?" I don't have an answer. I don't want one. All I know is that tonight I'm doing this, sitting in the lamplight with rain whispering against the window and warmth sitting gently in my hands. If there's one thing age gives you, aside from more comfortable shoes, it's the ability to let a moment be enough. My fingers drifted over the edge of the table, feeling the tiny nicks and scratches that have shaped themselves over years. Sometimes wear is the most honest kind of beauty. It tells you what has been lived, not just what has been seen. I think that's why I keep old things around. The chair, the blanket, the bookshelf that leans, this table with its quiet history. They remind me that a life doesn't need polishing to be meaningful. I just realized I haven't turned on the overhead lights once tonight, not because I forgot, but because the room feels more itself when it's lit from a single source. Everything outside the circle of lamplight can stay mysterious a little longer. At 63, mystery feels less like something to solve and more like something to sit beside. There's a little draft coming from the window frame, just enough to make the curtain lift and fall, like the room is breathing with me. I've been meaning to fix that draft since, probably 2004. I suppose some things stay on the to-do list because they remind you time is still moving. The curtain rises again, falls again, and the rhythm feels almost familiar, like an echo of an old lullaby. She must feel it too. Dogs always understand the softness of night. I look looked over at the little plant on the windowsill, a tiny philodendron I bought last spring because the cashier at CVS told me it was hard to kill. I took that as a personal challenge, but somehow it's still alive, growing slowly, quietly, choosing softness over everything else. Maybe that's why it belongs in this room. Maybe that's why I do. Some evenings ask you to confess. Others ask you to remember. But tonight, this one seems content with simply being held. So I'm here, leaning into the quiet, letting the night feel the weight of me without asking it to carry anything. The rain is softening now, that gentle tapering sound that marks the edge of a storm, not quite ending, but easing, like something loosening its grip. It mirrors the feeling inside me, this small, subtle untying in the chest, in the breath, in the memories. The lamp glows steadily beside me, and the room looks the way I imagine a heartbeat feels. Warm, rhythmic, and quietly alive. I don't know what the rest of December will bring, but tonight, the first night, it feels like something is beginning to bloom, very softly, somewhere deep beneath the rib cage. And I think I'm ready to notice it. There is a temperature to this hour that I want to learn by touch. It is not simply cold or warm. It is the way the house remembers its occupants. The light has settled into a softer honey, and the room seems to lean just enough toward the lamp to drink in that small kindness. I drew my thumb along the rim of my cup without meaning to, feeling the faint imperfection there, a hairline line that appeared some winter ago. I like imperfections. They keep memories from looking like perfect photographs. A scuff, a nick, a little dent. These are the punctuation marks of a life spoken slowly. When the breeze finds the slightly open window, it carries the smell of wet earth and the distant pine of someone else's yard. For a second, the scent crosses the room, and he is here in the way smells can be present, not with details, only with shape. The shape of his laugh, the way his hand fit mine. It is a gentle arrival and a quiet leave all at once. Lily moved nearer, pressing into the fabric of my skirt, as if to say, I am here, I will stay. Pets have this useful way of translating a night into trust. Perhaps that is the reason I keep her, for the simple grammar she provides when words are unnecessary. Tonight the house makes small sounds, the slow tick of the old clock, the soft creak where the floorboard remembers a different step, and I find that I am listening differently, not to fill the silence, but to hear what the silence is willing to tell me. There is a quiet intelligence to it, a patience that does not ask why, only notices. I thought of a winter morning in 2008 today, when the heat faltered and the neighborhood seemed to fold into itself. I remember how the world felt a little uncertain then. I remember Frank showing up on my porch with a thermos and a grin that said, "We'll manage." He doesn't say much, Frank. He lends a hand and a grin like a trade. There is generosity in simple gestures. They are the currency of neighborhoods. Some of us measure safety by big things, bank accounts, certificates, lists. I measure it by small acts. A casserole left on the step, a light left burning when I come home, a neighbor who remembers to knock and wait. Those things accumulate into a kind of shelter you can carry in your bones. There was a moment earlier when I thought about the PSE envelope on the table. I did not open it. For one small evening, I refused to let numbers enter the room. Allowing worry in is so easy. It slips in like damp. Tonight I wanted to be warmer than damp, so I did what felt like rebellion. I made space for quiet instead. I used to think being practical meant never indulging in small comforts. Practicality, when I was younger, looked like lists and check boxes. It made me proud. Now I am practical in a different way. I prioritize the little things that keep my evenings livable. A lit lamp, a tidy corner, the ritual of tea at the same hour. These are my defenses now, and they work a quiet sort of magic. There is a book on the shelf, an old paperback of poems my sister loaned me back in the 90s. The spine is creased in the middle, where I read on nights like this. I remember one poem about winter light that made me think of small windows and warm hands. Poetry has the awkward, generous job of saying things we can't quite say ourselves. I stood a while before the window earlier and watched my breath make a small wet circle on the glass. The tiny oval fogged and vanished before I had a chance to trace any meaning into it. That always feels like a small consolation, that my presence can leave a mark, however brief. and is evidence I was here. Even small marks matter. You learn over time that not every memory demands deep excavation. Some can be dusted like a favorite cup and set back on the shelf. There is a grace in letting a memory live on the surface, visible, approachable, warm when needed. When I think back to the early days with him, there is always a detail that makes me stumble into a smile. The way he would sing dreadful radio songs in the car, the bad ones that get stuck in your head, and the way he'd pretend it was a performance. It was the sort of performance that embarrassed our children and delighted me. Memory is full of small misdemeanors like that, gentle, harmless, oddly sustaining. Tonight the light seems to hold those small misdemeanors like ornaments. They hang there, not perfect, not polished, but present. They remind me that life has never been a smooth narrative. It is a string of tiny ornaments, some bright, some smudged, and you are allowed to arrange them as you like. I ran my hand along the edge of the coffee table and felt a groove worn lighter by years of cups and small hands. The groove feels honest. There is no attempt to make it newer. It takes pride in its wear. I like that. I like objects that wear their history quietly. They are companionable that way. Outside, someone's radio is humming faintly between the houses, an old jazz piece carrying in from a nearby window. Music at night is like a friend dropping by unannounced. It is familiar, and yet it arrives with possibility. It makes the room feel less like a repository of things and more like a place where time moves. At one point, I reached for the lampshade to straighten it, a tiny, unnecessary adjustment. And as my fingers brushed the brass, a thought occurred. The lamp has seen me through many small decisions. It has been witness to late pages of journals, to letters folded and unfolded, to stitches made in the dark. Lamps are like gentle confidants. They do not judge the things you confess in low voice. There's an internal shift happening as I sit here. It is not sudden or dramatic. It is the slow rearrangement of a feeling from tightness to ease. It's a quiet unwinding, a spool of tension unwinding into the floorboards. Sometimes these changes arrive in the stomach like a small warmth, sometimes in the eyes like a softened gaze. I notice my shoulders dropping an inch without meaning to. I didn't tell them to. They simply decided rest was acceptable tonight. And when my shoulders drop, the rest of me follows. A tiny ripple, and then the water stills. There is also a gentleness towards my own small absurdities. I chuckled earlier when I realized I had been talking to the butter in the kitchen, coaxing it to soften. The realization that I can find amusement in my own little clumsy acts is part of this shift. It makes the night less solemn and more like a companionable conversation with oneself. This is the work of these quiet evenings. They teach me how to hold things with less force. They teach me that not every worry requires action tonight. Not every ache requires immediate fixing. They instruct patience with a velvet touch. The lamp's light reaches now to a tiny plant on the sill, a small bonsai that seems to prefer the winter light. I tend it slowly as I tend myself, trimming nothing sharp, just encouraging little growth in unassuming ways. Gardening in small measures is like translating hope into gestures. You don't demand bloom, you provide conditions. I find myself making a small, quiet promise, a promise not made to an audience or a calendar, but to the thin and stubborn sense within me that keeps showing up. Tomorrow, I will step outside for a short while. 10 minutes, no more. I will let December's air touch my face and count the possibilities of small things. A stray seed, a bird's perch, the way the sky arranges itself when it is not trying to impress. It is a modest promise, and modest promises are often the most honest. They are not the kind that announce change from the rooftops. They are the kind that plant a gentle stake in the day and say, I am willing. Even as the night deepens, the lamp remains steady. Its light, modest and unfussy, does the work of company well. It does not attempt to claim the whole room. It simply tends to its small circle. I realize, with a quiet gratitude, that I can do the same. Soon, when the next part of this evening comes, I will fold the blanket over my knees and perhaps read a little from that thin book of poems. There is a sense that this night is building towards something not spectacular, but sufficient, an accumulation of small enough things until enough becomes more than enough. For now, the rain keeps its soft tempo. The lamp keeps its small vigil. Lily keeps her steady breath. And I keep watching the light touch everything into a gentleness I am learning to receive. When you are ready, sweetheart, come back to this quiet with me again. There will be more nights, more small promises. There will be times I will forget to open the mail, times I will laugh into my tea, times I will simply watch the rain invent new patterns on the window. Soon, I will move to the next little part of my evening. But for this moment, I am here, steady, not frantic, and grateful for the small turning. The rain has softened. It's not tapping anymore. It's more like it's resting against the window now, as if even the weather has decided that tonight doesn't need anything else added to it. Seattle rain can be dramatic when it wants to be, but December rain is thoughtful. She's drifting off. Her paws twitch a little when she dreams. I like to imagine she's chasing one of the neighborhood squirrels, the confident one that stares at us like it owns the house. At my age, I admire that kind of unbothered attitude. But tonight, even the squirrels are asleep somewhere, and the world feels like a teacup that's finally stopped trembling. I've been thinking about something, not in a heavy way, but in the soft way a thought floats up when you stop trying to think at all. It happened when I placed my cup down a few minutes ago. The sound it made, it was so gentle, like a punctuation mark that didn't want to disturb the sentence. I realized then that my whole day had felt like that, a punctuation mark. Nothing bold, nothing grand, just a small curve in the story, quiet, necessary, almost invisible. And yet, those are the days that build a life. Not the big ones, not the ones you take pictures of, but these tiny, quiet bends in the road, the ones that feel like whispered instructions from the universe. There's a kind of sacredness to nights like this, not dramatic sacredness, not stained glass window sacredness, more like the sacredness of warm socks or a door that doesn't slam, the sacredness of remembering something without hurting, the sacredness of realizing you're still here and somehow still unfolding. I keep looking at the corner where the wall meets the ceiling. There's nothing special there. A bit of shadow, maybe. But my eyes drift there when I'm thinking deeply, like the thought itself needs a place to land. I suppose that's something about being 63. thoughts start to perch rather than run. They sit with you. They don't rush. They wait for you to notice them. Sometimes I think my thoughts are more patient than I am. A little earlier, I reached for the blanket again, and for a moment, it brushed the old scar on my knuckle. A silly scar, really, from years ago, 2008, if I'm remembering right. I burned my hand on a stovetop because I insisted I didn't need oven mitts for just one quick second. My husband had said, "Quick seconds are how most stories start, Mags." He wasn't wrong. It's funny how a scar can become a tiny, shy historian, holding a whole memory inside something so small. Not painful, just quietly true. Tonight feels full of those little truths, the kind that don't require an answer, the kind that only need to be witnessed. The lamp beside me is at its warmest now, that exact moment before the bulb hum settles into sleep. I've always felt this lamp has moods, not dramatic ones, just soft shifts, like when a person clears their throat before saying something important. And here we are, the end of the first night of December, the first night of many we'll share. It feels like the opening chapter of a journal I haven't written yet. A beginning that isn't trying too hard to be a beginning, just a night that arrived, wrapped itself around me, and whispered, "You're allowed to rest now." You know, I used to feel guilty ending the day, as if nightfall meant I hadn't used my time well enough. But age teaches you something unexpected. Endings aren't failures. They're invitations. The invitation tonight is simple: to let the day go and not ask it for more than it gave. I glanced at the window a moment ago, and the reflection startled me at first. I always forget how soft my face looks in lamplight. Lines where life happened, not mistakes, just places where time decided to leave its handwriting. At 63, I think I finally understand. We're not meant to erase the story. Just read it gently. The heater turned off a few minutes ago, and the quiet that followed felt like a small kind of blessing. Silence can be frightening at certain ages, but not tonight. Tonight it feels earned, deserved, safe. I should put away the stray catalog on the table, but something about leaving it there until morning feels human, real. Not everything needs to be put in its place. place right away. Sometimes a little disorder is just proof you are living. Besides, if the delivery driver sees me in my morning hair again, I suppose that's our annual holiday tradition now. The night is changing shape now. There's a softness in the air that only comes when everything that needed to be said has already found its place. I feel it in my shoulders, that slow settling, the body's way of whispering, "We did enough today." I think I'll stay here a few more minutes after I stop speaking, just letting the lamp finish its warm work and the room finish its quiet breathing. But before I let the night close, I want to leave one small promise. Not a goal, not a challenge, just a promise. The kind that feels like placing a bookmark in a chapter I'm not ready to close. Tomorrow, I'll take a short walk just around the block to feel how December breathes in daylight. Not far, not fast, just a gentle step into the morning. A small promise, a soft one, the kind that keeps the heart company. And now, I think the night is ready to settle. The lamp feels warmer, the rain quieter, the room fuller, and my heart, well, it feels like it's sitting beside you in that stillness that only appears when two quiet souls share the same soft hour. Sleep gently tonight and let the day end without asking it for anything more. I'll keep the light on until the night finishes its sentence.